The Irish Kinahan, the most ruthless cartel to ever exist? They received it, and this is why. The Irish Kinahan Cartel has gained power in Europe, South America, and the Middle East. What makes this cartel so remarkable is that while cartel bosses from other countries tend to remain hidden, Irish Kinahan cartel chiefs are complete opposites. They are not afraid to show us their lavish lifestyle, real businesses, or even cover-ups. We'll be focusing on that today. We will be doing a deep dive into the lives of Irish Kinahan cartel members, their roles in the cartel, and how they spend money. Christopher Vincent, Dapper Don Kinahan. The Dapper Don, Christopher Vincent Kinahan, was born in Ireland on March 23, 1957. Unlike most cartel leaders in South America who come from poor families, Christopher was born to a wealthy family. He also attended one of Ireland's most prestigious schools. It is this that makes him different from the other cartel leaders. You may know that the Dapper Don showed the criminal underworld and then became the leader of an organized crime group. His intelligence was always what set him apart. When this man was arrested in the 1980s for crimes related to the seizure of heroin, he did something that only 1% of prisoners ever do. He did not join a gang or engage in more violent activities like other prisoners. Christopher earned 2 degrees while in prison. He refused to be released so that he could finish his degree. Now the leader of a gang that has killed over 50 people. Kinahan's cartel was not always so violent. Christie founded the Kinahan Cartel in the 1980s. It all started as a small illegal business that committed minor crimes. It's now a transnational crime syndicate specializing in crimes, money laundering, assassinations, and feuds. Christopher is the king of narcos and the heart and soul of the cartel. He's also the leader of the Kinahan Organized Crime Group, KOCG. The United States authorities have convicted him of successfully smuggling heroin, ecstasy, and other narcotics from Dublin to Spain, the Middle East, and the UK. Thomas Bomber Kavanaugh. Before he was arrested, Thomas Kavanaugh was a violent, brutal man. He was a leader who knew how much power and influence he held. Kavanaugh has also been called the Godfather and the Mafia Chief. He was born in Dublin, Ireland on September 10, 1967. He was the man in charge of the Kinahan Cartel and took over when Don Kinahan left. Even though the position was given to others before him, because of his ability to handle power and responsibility, Kavanaugh has been tagged as the second in command. Kavanaugh was appointed the UK leader of the cartel in 2004, after Fat Freddie Thompson, a murderer, was arrested. Liam Byrne was the successor to Fat Freddie Thompson and fled the country for his safety when he realized he was under surveillance by the federal government. When he took on the role, Kavanaugh had to maintain the dominance and order of the gang's UK operations and the surrounding areas. Everyone who worked with him was aware of how terrifying he was and knew to avoid his explosive temper. Kavanaugh was not just a ticking time bomb. He was prepared for everything. Kavanaugh had a well-defined structure where everyone was assigned a specific role and knew exactly what to do. Along with the 7 other murders for which the Mafia Godfather Kavanaugh had been suspected, he also murdered his cousins Gerard Hatchet Kavanaugh and Paul Kavanaugh. They worked together with another man named James Mulvey in the UK unit, managing the organization's affairs, including its financial aspect. He had a property nicknamed the Party Estate because it is where Thomas does his drug dealing and usually parties with his friends after making a successful shipment. He lived in Knockanaria Avenue. Kavanaugh has been arrested and is serving a sentence of 21 years for money laundering and drug trafficking. Kavanaugh, however, was the second in command behind Christopher Kinahan. Daniel Kinahan appears to use the power of the spotlight yet again in an impressive way. He was born in Dublin, Ireland, on June 25, 1977. Since then, he's become a top boxing promoter and the CEO of MGM. He rebranded the company to whatever he thought was necessary to avoid the authorities from looking at his business. Daniel Kinahan, the head of the Kinahan Cartel and boxing advisor to current WBC heavyweight champ Tyson Fury, was much more than a boxing promoter. Daniel ran a tight ship and was very tidy. He sent a whole load of assassins and many of his loyal supporters on errands to ensure that the cartel remained Europe's most powerful. Gary Hutch. Gary Hutch shot Gary in southern Spain to ensure no one would retaliate for the monk Gary killed. But the monk somehow slipped through, and Jerry decided to start a war with the Kinahans. After this incident, relatives of both major parties started to disappear. Eventually, 18 people were murdered. David Byrne, one of Kinahan's most prominent leaders. This shows that Daniel was not the smiling man on social media. He only called the shots, but he was the best leader in the KOCG. Fairfold Limited was the first company, registered in November 1999. It was an import-export business. In October 2000, Daniel and his aunt founded a second interior design company named The Curious Cat that operated out of Whitefriars Street in Dublin. Daniel and Denise established Green Clean Clinical Ltd. the day after registering the company. In 2003, Daniel was registered as a director for a Spanish property investment firm called Sea Dream Homes SL. 2 years later, he became a director at a building firm named The Score Emerald Group SL. He founded General Trading LLC, a UAE-based management consulting firm. His biggest enterprise is MGM Boxing Merchandise, formerly MGM. Daniel owns multiple luxury houses and cars. One of them is located on the Dubai Palm Islands. Liam Byrne, leader of the Byrne Group. Liam may not be a household word for some. When it comes to the Irish Kinahan organized criminal group, they know him very well. Liam Byrne was born in Dublin on October 30th, 1980, and grew up there. He was the leader of the UK cartel unit before he fled. With his brother, he created the international crime group Bone. David Byrne, a member of the Hutch feud who attacked Daniel Kinahan in 2016, was shot. Liam was the mob boss for the UK unit. Liam led the Kinahan group in the UK and the Byrne group. He even formed his group to accelerate and further the business. He also established other businesses to foster the money laundering crime so that all workers could be paid as regular staff and money could continue circulating. But it wasn't too long before Daniel's lavish lifestyle caught the attention of the DEA. He has been spotted multiple times talking to Premier at different games. Liam was involved in some second-hand car businesses. This was before the authorities seized his cars, worth more than €1 million. His house at Riley Square was also seized and searched for evidence of his crimes. He is also in exile, so he's not on the radar. Because he is getting heat from authorities, it's time to look at his henchmen before discussing another major cartel member. They may not be the cartel leaders, but they are very important to the running of the cartel. John Francis Morrissey. Morrissey grew up in Dublin. His original cartel duties were to provide money and materials for the gang and facilitate their international aquatic shipments. South America Johnny, however, decided to be extra ambitious and launder some of the money. The sale of smooth vodka in the best drinking establishments by Drinks in Gibraltar. Authorities believe he controls a large part of the company, or at least its drug compensation part, through his wife, Nicola. Morrissey was detained after he had been convicted for laundering more than €200 million for the cartel in just 18 months. He was responsible for collecting money from smaller criminal groups that worked for them and then delivering the money to other gangs in other countries. The cartel enforcer Morrissey was also known as Bernard the Fixer. Clancy. Clancy was known as the fixer of the cartel, as he had to pay the workers and all other staff on their payroll. This meant Clancy knew everyone and had no choice but to deal with them. Clancy was the hitman who assassinated the cartel's opponents. they're about to meet the man in charge of paying all of the staff of the cartel. This man controls the most important aspect of the cartel and is the main reason everyone joins it. Christopher Kinahan Jr. Money is essential for every business to survive. If the cartel ran out of money, not only would men begin to complain, but they could also begin working against the cartel. Christopher Vincent Kinahan Jr. is the son of Christopher Dapper Don Vincent Kinahan. He was born on September 24, 1980, and spent most of his childhood in Dublin, Ireland. However, unlike his brother Daniel Kinahan, who was responsible for the murders, smuggling, laundering activities, and other operations of the organization, Christy Jr. works undercover and handles the finances and logistics. Christy Jr.'s role ensures that he knows when, where, and why everything happens. He must ensure that all operations are beneficial to the organization and they suffer as little loss as possible. Christy Jr., on the surface, appears to be a normal businessman, but Christy's approach is sophisticated. According to the United States government, Kinahan Jr. can access the organization's funds and direct the illegal proceeds toward individual businesses outside of Dubai. Kinahan's registered 200 companies in 20 countries, primarily to launder money. All these money-related documents are passed through Christy Jr., the mob boss for finances. In addition to his busy schedule, Christy Jr. travels occasionally. However, he always finds other people's names on his passports and ID cards. Due to the cartel's intense scrutiny, Christopher Jr. has gone into hiding. He is believed to be hiding at the Palm Island cartel's home in Dubai.